What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into our channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary, and I'm here with my beautiful wife. Say hi, boo.
Hi everyone, I'm Akdi and I'm from Turkey. And yeah, we're gonna be looking at desert flower. Sorry, I'm a little bit tired.
It's been a long day, and we've been working hella hard at teaching online and also going to university, and just having Simon and Acty alone time. But we're back again to do more movie reviews, and this is episode 92 in our series. And this is a British film. I feel like it's mostly British. Where was this exactly filmed? It was mostly filmed in Britain, but the country of production was Germany, actually, which is why the film opens with the German title. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I didn't remember that it was German, honestly. I thought it was British, but yeah, maybe it's a collaboration of both.
Yeah. But anyway, we haven't done any foreign films in a while. We've mostly been covering like American films, I feel like. So it's glad to get out of our comfort zone and cover this story that is the autobiography of a Somali supermodel named Wadis Dididi. And this is her story of her come up of being a girl who grew up in a small, nomadic family in the outskirts of Somalia and ends up becoming a top supermodel who advocates on behalf of women's justice. And this is a 2009 film, and I had never seen it before. You saw it before, but when you showed it to me, I believe a few days ago, I was taken aback by the film. It's dramatic, it's funny at times, it's cute at times, it's cringe at times, it's a lot of things. But how did you feel after you watched it?
Yeah, I have to say, like, this movie has an importance in my womanhood. Because the first time I saw this movie, I was in high school, and I saw it, and we watched it in school actually. So first of all, it's a crazy movie to show students. But when I watched it, I was like, more grateful for the womanhood that I have and more grateful for those everyday freedoms that I took for granted.
Right,
And it really helped me like appreciate my womanhood basically and
right.
to have the opportunity to, have those freedoms.
Yeah, and when she's talking about appreciating her womanhood, everybody, she's talking about having an intact vagina because this film is about female genital mutilation, which is something a lot of us don't think about, but it's actually a worldwide phenomenon that millions of women suffer from. And this is the only thing that I can say is like maybe inherently worse than anti-blackness. And actually, and actually, you know how I feel about that. There's nothing worse than white supremacy, anti-blackness, but female genital mutilation, sort of like it's close. It's close. It's up there.
Yeah, I mean, we will dive more into it, but it's truly evil because it's done for the sole purpose of like patriarchal power and ego. And
Mhm.
that's what makes it like the worst thing for me.
Yeah.
And also like it's most of the time it's like female circumcision is done on like little girls, and
Hmm.
also that's one of the reasons why it makes it so bad because it's something that you cannot decide on.
Right.
And even as a man, like I think you sometimes say like I wish I didn't get circumcised.
I wish I didn't get circumcised sometimes because it looks like guys who are uncircumcised in porno films are like feeling that shit to another level. And pause, no diddy, no diddy. that made we had another guy in the room and he just like dropped out as soon as he heard that. But no, I don't mind being uncircumcised. Like that's cool. But one thing I gotta say, I don't like the term female circumcision because that makes it sound cute. That makes it sound like not as horrific as it is. So
Mm,
I would prefer to use FGM or female genital mutilation phrase if we're gonna refer to it. But it's also up to
okay.
you too.
No, that's fine. I mean, I think you have a point there. I just used it because it was shorter, basically.
Yeah,
But yeah, I can say FGM, and yeah, that would refer to female genital mutilation.
yeah.
But yeah, watching it a second time, I saw the flaws in it, as in like cinematography and storytelling wise. It's still a very powerful story. Like nothing really takes away from the story, But yeah, it could have been executed better, and that's just what I noticed like the second time watching it. And I was also very curious, like what you thought about it.
Right. Well, you said you saw it when you were a teen, and I do think this is actually a good film to show teenagers, even more teenage girls, to know about the oppression that still is out there affecting women, and to have those issues pushed to the front. I also think young guys should see this too. To know that we need to do our part to step up and advocate for our sisters, that they don't go through horrific things, right? Like, not a lot of countries do FGM to girls, but it's something that we should speak out against. And also, like, we should be checking our own version of whatever mutilation we put women through in our societies. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we can never all rise unless some of us are still suffering. So that's a good thing to know about. But I just remember, like, there's that scene where it's shown, the
Hmm.
mutilation. So that was such a hard scene to watch in class with boys, and we're all teenagers, and they're making like these sounds, like ugh, and things like that. So it was. I just remember it being like very mm, dark and also weird at the same time.
Yeah, the best parts of this film are when they just go full on and embrace the brutality of the act. The cringe parts of this film are 80% of the rest. Like, the 20% moments when, by the way, shout out to the main actress, Leah Kabede. She plays Walrus. Shout out to Sally Hawkins. She plays her white best friend, Marilyn. This is the first time where I saw like a white woman be like the sassy black friend in a film. So that was great. uh, Shout out to basically everybody else, because the acting generally is good, but it does give that sheen, that vibe of like sisterhood of the traveling pants. Like, it feels very after school teen movie at times. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's 2009 and it's not like a big production Hollywood movie.
Yeah,
So yeah, it's more like a bit more educative and sort of like autobiography ish.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
it tries to be, but I think at the same time they try to appeal to the bigger crowd, and
Hmm.
that's what made it like that, teen romance vibes.
Yeah, a little bit, because there's parts of this film that sort of go nowhere, like Anthony Mackie's character as Harold Jackson, the pseudo love interest that the main character just sort of like ends up stalking. Like, and yeah, like her relationship she had with her brother, that seemed to be very close at the beginning, and then he's sort of like forgotten about when she like blows up and starts balling as a top model. You know what I mean? So there's parts of this film that go nowhere, but I still want to give a shout out to our director, who is Sherry Horman, who is a German American female director, and I really like how this film has the touch of femininity to it, because there are those precious moments where you see like Marilyn and Wadis like being girls and having fun and like joking around and stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like there are those parts where we see also just Waris as herself being a supermodel and sort of embracing her femininity in a sense that, yeah, she might be lacking a proper working vagina, but she's still a woman, she's still sexy. And yeah, it's kind of like ironic because supermodels are seen as like the sex symbols, right?
The
Especially
ultimate,
at
the
that time.
penultimate feminine, right? Like, there's no other job that embraces femininity more than maybe a mother, a wet nurse, and a supermodel.
Yeah, yeah. And like this woman, sort of like breaks down that stereotype that supermodels has to sleep with everyone to get to the top.
Right. I think there's even an argument to be said that this is a queer film or a trans friendly film, because think about this, like you said, and I didn't think about this until you said it right now. She doesn't technically have her full working lady parts. Her genitalia has been mutilated, but she still is a woman. She presents as a woman, people interact with her as a woman, and she feels like a woman, but a part of her femininity was taken. So
Yeah.
I think it would be no different than if there was a very femme trans woman who wanted to be a supermodel and went through, similar struggles and stuff like that. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, every time I watch this movie, and I mean, two times I watched this movie, I always thought like she might be asexual because of her trauma.
Mm,
And I kind of like imagined her as that, like, because asexual people doesn't, they don't necessarily like, they can be in relationships and they can
mhm.
have partners, but they just don't want to really engage in sexual activities.
Right.
So I kind of like saw her like that, and I don't know if that's true. That was just like how I imagined it in my head.
Yeah, because she never really had a love with a man, like a full on relationship, and maybe that's what the Harold Jackson storyline is supposed to highlight. That maybe she wants to be attracted to men, but she doesn't know how. And then there's so many other things that get in the way of that, like her actual scars down there. Like she's scared to show those scars to Harold, maybe.
Yeah, I mean it's a sexual trauma, so
Hmm.
she needs to like, yeah, overcome it, and also like the person has to understand it as well. It's a lot of complications. Like I definitely understand why she would not have a relationship.
Yeah, definitely. But let's walk through this story a bit. So the movie opens up in Somalia somewhere, and there's this young girl among a bunch of sheep, and this one sheep is giving birth to another one, and this young Somali girl holds up the sheep to her, and her brothers come running up to her saying, "Waters, Waters, Dad is calling us." And Waris says, I have this new sheep. Her name is Fatima." And her brothers say, "Oh, you can't name it Fatima. That's the daughter of the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam." And she's like, "So I don't give a fuck." So show us she was like a rebel from the beginning. And so yeah, they show like how she's living basically a pastoral nomadic lifestyle with her family. Like they eat like the hardest looking bread you've ever seen out of the like wooden bowls that they have laying around. And it looks like a very simple nomadic lifestyle. And then they fast forward like years later to this girl in London. Now she's grown and she's wearing like this very pink hijab outfit, and she's like trying to shoplift in this store. But one of the shop assistants is like, "It's no use trying to steal." So so the young Somali girl runs into the bathroom, and she's in one of the stalls about to do something. I'm not exactly sure what she's doing. She pulls out like this plate and then also like stares at her passport. Then like the shop assistant girl runs in there and she's crying for some reason. She opens the stall and sees the Somali girl in there and just screams like she's never seen a black person before. I says, "You can't be doing this here." The Somali girl doesn't speak any English, even though she's been in the UK for like 6 years. And then the shop assistant girl is like running out of the store, and the Somali girl is trying to like chase her to try to talk to her. What did you think about those opening scenes?
Yeah, I mean, the life that we see of Waris when she was a kid, like you said, it's a very simple life, like just nature's people, living out in the somewhere that looks like a desert. And yeah, it's like there's struggle, but there's also some sort of simplicity and peace to it a little bit because we don't know what's about to come. So
Hmm.
you just appreciate the scenery. I mean, that's what I felt. And
Yeah.
yeah, and you have like these children that have no worry in the world, and they're just being children. They're playing with goats, they're playing with each other, and things like that. So yeah, and also when I was watching it with you, like how you always sometimes say, I was born in like a small town in Louisiana, and I've come up here, like I've came all this way. I'm in Europe. I've been to a lot of countries, and you have like you had a crazy life, and you did come like from a place where maybe not a lot of people get out. And I was
Hmm.
thinking about that, like this girl, like she was in the desert in Somalia and then came where?
No, she really started from the bottom. I feel you.
Yeah. So that's what I was thinking about in that first scene.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, when you know it's sort of like I disagree with you a bit that it's like simple life. It looks like the hardest life you could ever imagine because they're living like in a place where it looks like nothing can grow. Like the goats are like eating literal like branches with like no leaves on them. The ground is just straight rocks. It looks like God's armpit. Like what is this place on earth that people sort of found a way to live in? But I was glad that you picked this film because I had never seen a Somali film before, and even though this isn't generally a Somali story because it's international, like I was glad to hear Somali on screen and see this part of life. You know.
Yeah. I mean, I was just sort of picturing it from the children's point of view.
Hmm.
Of course, it's a hard life and they don't have a lot of like food options. They're eating bread for dinner
Hmm.
with like water and stuff. So, yeah, of course,
Yeah.
it's hard. But when you're a child, you don't know that, or you don't know the life outside of that, if that's
Yeah.
what you're born into. So, yeah.
I got you. Well, moving forward in the story, the shop assistant girl whose name is Marilyn, the white girl who ends up becoming Warris's best friend, she's initially like scared of her or she doesn't want to be around her. She just thinks she's crazy. And so Warris ends up like sleeping on the streets, digging through trash cans to try to find food, looking in like telephone booths for like loose change or whatever. She eventually finds Marilyn again on a bus and like passes her a note, which I guess has something translated saying like be my friend or something. And so Marilyn takes Warris to where she's staying, which is like this girls hostel or dormitory. And she has to try to convince the Indian woman who runs the place to let Warris stay. Warris doesn't know any English, so she's saying stuff like, "Today the weather is cloudy with chance of rain," and the Indian woman is like, "Who are you supposed to be? The weatherman? The BBC? You something like that?" And so she ends up letting Warris stay just because she thinks she's cute. And Warris like kisses her hand and says like, "Mama." And there's the beginning of the friendship between Marilyn and Warris. What did you think of those scenes?
Yeah. I absolutely like find Marilyn hilarious. She's just like this, British, trashy British girl who has actually like good intentions, but she's somewhat delusional about her dancing career
Yeah.
because she's the worst ever dancer ever, like
And we
on
see
earth.
it later. Like she is really bad. Like,
Yeah, she's really bad, but she wants to be in like ballet,
mhm,
basically. And yeah, like I like her sort of like a brutal friendship. I don't know, like not it's not brutal honesty, but she's just like she's in the ghetto and she knows it. So she's
mhm,
like, okay, let me help you. I like their dynamic because it's not like friendship at first sight,
mhm,
but it just sort of develops, and it's cool to see like these two women from absolutely two different parts of the world.
mhm,
They have absolutely different like experiences,
mhm.
but they find like something in common.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they were cute together at the beginning. I like their dynamic. Once again, it is very, how can I say, like, it feels very, what is that film? Um, Man, what is that film? Like Princess Diary-ish, like Devil Wears Prada-ish. This film is very feminine. You know what I mean? So there's some guys who might be turned off by the very beginning of this film if they don't know where it's going, right? But it gets very dark very soon. So, but I liked how they showed like the real London, like how it is very diverse and multicultural. Like you have an Indian woman who's running the hostel and she's running it like a mob boss. You got this wild British woman who's just like adopting like Somali refugees in her home. Like that's the UK. That's what we need. We need more of that in the world. So
Yeah, yeah. You have that. You have like a lot of just like sort of lost girls around the city. You have the
yeah.
weird white janitors.
Yeah, yeah. So the Neil, right, is the janitor who shows up, and he plays an important part later in the story. But everybody sort of like plays Neil off like a doofus, like he's the guy who's like, fixing the lights and the heater and stuff like that. And he looks kind of like Shaggy. He kind of looks like a grown-up Shaggy from Scooby Doo,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And he's like hitting on girls that come there.
Yeah.
I guess, and he specifically hits on Varis.
Yo, I bet Neil has the dirtiest dick of all time. Like,
Ew, I
girl,
don't even want to imagine his genitals.
you want some extra towels? You trying to get some
Gross.
extra soap? I can hook you up. But what you gonna do for me?
Yeah,
Oh
I,
man.
I did not feel him throughout the movie.
Yeah, yeah. No, but there was a moment when he actually does something good, but we'll touch on that as we continue. Anyway, Marilyn hooks up Juarez with a job at this burger joint. And Juarez ends up going there to get a job, and she ends up mopping the floors and cleaning up and stuff like that. And one day while she's cleaning, this fat old British man, looking like a marmorous tourist who just came back, he's sitting there after chomping down on what had to be like 3 or 4 burgers, right? He looks up and in slow mo, Warris stands up and it's all glazy around her face and stuff like that. And he says, "By God, that's the most beautiful negress I've ever seen." And
He
so
does not say that.
and
Stop.
so he's watching Warris with like hawk's eyes as she like wipes down tables and like puts half-eaten burgers in her apron pocket. And so when she's about to like dump a bunch of trash into the garbage, he stands up and says, "Oi, take my card, eh? If you ever look to do some photography or modeling, you should call me." And she's about to like throw it away, but he said, don't you throw that away, bitch," and then walks away, smooth as hell. And so, yeah. Any comments on those things?
The way you tell the story, he was not disrespectful.
He wasn't disrespectful, but there is some casual racism that pops up later in this film that's going to be hilarious. But
Okay.
can I just say
Um,
this? Can I just
yeah.
say this before you jump in? There is some differentiation between the book that this is based on and the movie. The autobiography that Warris wrote, she says that she met the photographer, who was a famous photographer, outside of his daughter's like dance studio or school while she was like trying to get a charge. I don't know what that means because I'm reading from Wikipedia,
Mm,
but it says like she was like waiting outside of a school, and then that's where the guy saw her, not at the McDonald's. So yeah, I
okay.
just want to throw that in there. Go ahead.
I mean, not it's not like sometimes they change to make the storytelling easier. But yeah, this guy, like the actual actor, no, Timothy Spall, I think.
Hmm.
He played in Harry Potter. And I just cannot it's very hard for me to imagine him as this like artsy photographer, famous photographer dude. And yeah,
Wait,
but
what character did he play in Harry Potter? Because I'm Potter ignorant.
it's like it was like this evil helper of the evil guy.
Okay.
Yeah, the noseless guy. I forgot his name.
Me
Anyway,
too. Voldemort.
Voldemort. Yes, he was like the helper of Voldemort, basically.
I should get some points just for knowing that.
You did. But yeah, so it's hard for me to imagine him, but I think he did a good job despite of that. Because at the end of the movie, I really can picture him as the character he's playing in this movie.
Okay.
But like in this scene, if I was Warris, I wouldn't also believe that he was a famous person because he
Hmm.
looks absolutely gross. He has like his shoes out, like he took his shoes off in a McDonald's or something, and he's
Yeah.
eating burgers. So he does look very gross.
I have to disagree with you. When I imagine a famous rich British person, that's what they look like. Like I'm imagining like cuz the Brits they get rich from like their great great grandfather like built a castle somewhere that was trading in like leather from beavers in Canada or something. Like they got old money. So they don't give a fuck about how they look. Ain't no Ozempic getting sold, no BBLs getting done. Like they look exactly like that.
I guess it's the cultural difference.
Yeah.
I guess. But yeah, it's just that the one thing that you notice, I think, in the scene, how Laris is um, like reacting to him. She basically like just looks down, doesn't say anything. She looks kind of scared of him.
Yeah. I mean,
And you can't really tell like why that is. Like, is it because she doesn't know the language? Is it because like he's a man? Is it because he's white? Like, you can't really put a finger on it.
yeah, It's just she was probably very nervous about her English skills. Like, oh, I'm sorry, me no speak English. It was one of those things. That's what I feel like.
I mean, she did follow a random girl.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
I know,
but
right? Like, she should have been thinking right now. Oh, now I know how Marilyn feel.
yeah. So I don't know. It felt like to me, it felt like a bit cultural and religious
Okay.
when we see her like that.
Yeah, yeah. Speaking of religious, like up to this point in the film, she's wearing hijab most of the time, right? She's covering her
Hmm.
head.
Yeah.
But moving on in the story, she's, been working at the burger joint for a few weeks, and she's also been studying English. And then one night, Marilyn is like, "We're gonna go out and party, girl," and like, they're like getting dressed in the room and stuff like that. Also, at the same time, like Waters is like cooking something with like random stuff that she picked up like from cans. And so, yeah, Neil walks in and he gives Marilyn a letter. And Marilyn gets very upset because she finds out that she got rejected again. Also, Neil tries some of Warris's food and says, "Oh, this is disgusting." I mean, it's great. It's great. You're hot, so it must be good. But yeah, Warris tries to cheer up Marilyn by saying, "Let's go party" and stuff like that. Then the next scene, like Marilyn is like getting down on the dance floor, like popping the flattest ass you've ever seen, like Ginger Minge. It's really bad. So they're in the club chilling. Warris is like in the corner wearing like this big bubble coat that Marilyn gave her when she spots the handsomest, most dastardly, most nefarious nigga of all time. She sees Anthony Mackie in the club. Now, now
Harold
for me,
Jackson.
Harold Jackson, Anthony Mackie playing some guy named Harold Jackson. But I cannot look at this and not think of all the dastardly things Anthony Mackie has done on screen. Like he has always been the permanent bad guy. Like Anthony Mackie was the first black man to not pay child support, and like
Wow.
that's
I
how
mean,
wicked this
thinking
nigga
about it
is.
now, this cast is kind of like all over the place,
It is. It is.
but they fit somehow.
Yes. Please save me because I'm about to go off on an Anthony Mackie rant. But anyway,
No,
any
no,
comments
no.
on these scenes?
I mean, yeah, this scene, like you said, it is somewhat of a feminine movie.
Hmm.
So I definitely felt that, like going out with your friends and things like that. And I was just imagining like what Waris was feeling. First of all, with the cooking, like how is she reacting to British food?
Mm.
Because like
I,
she came all this way and she's like, oh, I'm in London, one
yeah.
of the most developed countries in the world, and this is what they eat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was just wondering like how she was in the supermarket and stuff,
Yeah.
and then also what would be like her first reaction to the club.
Yeah. How dare Neil talk about, oh, that's disgusting, eating Loris's food when he eats like blood pudding for like a cheat meal? Like, what the fuck? Like, he can't say anything.
Yeah, and beans on toast.
Beans on toast, bangers and mash. They have.
Bangers and mash.
I'm sure you've seen that picture of like the pie, the British pie with like the fish head sticking out of it. Like,
Oh yeah.
like, bro, you can never talk. Brits can't say anything.
Yeah, but that was just something in the back of my head because also this is a real life story.
Hmm.
So just imagining how that person actually reacted to everything.
Yeah,
And also like the club, she probably thought like, what are these people doing? Why is everyone like grinding on each other? They don't know each other.
yeah.
But it looked like, she was that type of person that didn't really found anything weird.
Hmm.
And maybe it was because what she'd been through. She was just
Hmm.
like trying to fit in.
Yeah, just trying to fit in, go support her girl and stuff like that. Plus, we have to remember she's probably shy about what's going on down there and stuff like that. She's holding in her pee for
Well,
hours
at
on
this
end.
point, she doesn't know.
Well, yeah, Marilyn doesn't know, but I'm talking about what's going on in Warris's head.
Yeah, but also Worse doesn't know that what she experienced is not common.
Oh yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, we're about to get to that. But anyway, in the club scene, basically Anthony Mackie comes up behind Warris and says, "Hey, motherfucker, I'm Tupac." And Warris is like, "Huh?" And
Simon.
But no, Anthony Mackie and Harold Jackson and Wattis have like this flirty moment in the club. They do like this little dance together, and then Warris has to like run away. She like runs away like Cinderella, and so yeah, basically she goes back home and she finds Marilyn having sex with the guys she was dancing with on the dance floor, right? And so Warris has to wait outside while her friend is getting banged out. And then when she finally leaves, Marilyn says, "Hey, I'm sorry about all that. I was just having fun." And then Warris is like, "Respectable women don't do that." And Marilyn is like, "What? Have sex? It's okay, Warris. You're not back in the desert or whatever." Casual racism. And so Warris says, "Respectable woman is cut." And Warris is like, "Huh? What?" No, Marilyn is like, "What? Cut? What do you mean cut?" And, "You are not cut," says Warris. And so Marilyn is like, "I don't know what you mean cut. Can you show me or tell me?" And so then Warris stands up and then shows Marilyn her vagina. And Marilyn is quite shocked by what she sees. And, Warris says, "They did not do this to you?" And she says, "No, no, they didn't." Marilyn says, "Here we don't do that." And then she stands up and shows her vagina to Warris. And yeah, that was actually one of the most moving scenes. And yeah, that's the beginning of like the good parts of this film. And that's when I really got sucked in because up to that point, I didn't know where exactly it was going. I thought it was going to be an Anthony Mackie, love drama comedy. Like, what the fuck? Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I think this movie does those dramatic scenes really good, and the acting is really good in the movie as well. In
Mhm.
those scenes,
Yeah.
um, I don't know, like in other scenes, the acting might feel a bit fake, maybe,
Hmm.
or not the acting, but just the overall situation. But the good scenes, they did it well, I think.
Hmm.
And this is one of the two scenes that I, fought to hold my tears back
Hmm.
because it's such a I don't know. It's such a deep moment, but at the same time, there's so much pain in the moment
Hmm.
because, one of the women experienced female genital mutilation, and then the other one is basically helpless and possibly imagining like what happened to her, all the things that she missed or is not going to get to experience.
Hmm.
And it's just like that shared grief that they're grieving over Varus's genitalia,
Yeah.
and it's just very sad to like see their eyes tear up and their voice shaking. Yeah, that was very like moving for me both times that I watched.
Yeah, no. Even I watched the film twice, and even watching that part again, and I didn't even watch the film on normal speed. I watched it on 2x. It still moves you, right? There's excellent pacing, excellent acting, real tears coming from the actresses during those moments. And I think what makes that scene sadder is not the fact. It's not only the fact that Warris had FGM. It's the fact she says, "Wait, they didn't do this to you too." And all women are like this, right? You get what I'm saying? Which hints that she thought that this was common, that this was widespread. And that makes you think there are more women who probably think this is so normal and it's abnormal to have sex or still have your clitoris or squirt. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you grow up with this fact that you are supposed to be mutilated when you're a child, and this is your normal, basically. And then once you discover that it's not normal, it's basically your whole life shattered.
Hmm.
Like you go back and question everything. You
Yeah.
ask yourself, why did this happen to me? Why did my mom do this to me?
Hmm.
All these things. You ask, I think, like, I don't know. They show it in a brief second in the movie, but I think, of course, in reality, this was a much more like complicated and elongated fight for Varys in real
Yeah.
life, like
Yeah.
that mental fight with it.
Yeah. Now, in the book, what Warris wrote about her FGM is actually a bit different than what she says in the film. And I wanted to ask you, what do you think about them changing this part of the story? So in the book, what happened was when she was 4, she was raped by her cousin. So then her parents took her to get FGM, where they took out her labia and her clitoris and sewed it all up. And in the film, what she says, she makes it seem like, oh, this was the tradition in my village or my country or whatever. And then, I just had it happen to me when I was 3 years old. So, what do you think about the differences in how the story is told? Because on one hand, I feel like, you know, telling the story that she got raped and putting it in the film might make this seem like, oh, they just did that because of this one thing. And unfortunately, we live in a world where rape victims are still blamed, even if they're for, unfortunately, right?
Hmm.
But then on the other hand, I'm like, changing the story makes it seem more general, and it's probably the story of millions of other girls. They didn't get raped, but they still got, FGM. But what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's maybe why they changed it because I'm imagining they got the approval of the writer when like doing this movie, and maybe they just wanted to highlight the generalness of the act and not the this she got raped and then that's why they did it. They didn't want to maybe create that narrative.
Hmm.
And yeah, like it's like even if something like that happened to her, it's still like no excuse to do something like that. But maybe that they just didn't want it to make that the highlight of the reason for her getting mutilated afterwards.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think about, what Tupac said and about his music. He's like, it might not be exactly my story, but it's our story, you know?
Hmm.
So by telling the story this way, I'm not mad at it, you know? I think it's actually okay. It doesn't really change the theme a lot because like you said, it's about the generalness, the generality of how this thing happens usually.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was the purpose of changing that part. Because maybe even more things like it's now that you read that, I'm even more sad now that this woman has been through a lot more. What
Hmm.
is it like? I this is 4 years old, and then you experience this sort of thing.
Hmm.
Like, how do you even overcome that?
Yeah.
Such a strong, I don't know, presence
Yeah.
you have to have. And then on top of it, having the will to do what she did, which we will talk in the rest of the movie.
Yeah, no, she was strong. She was strong.
Yeah.
She had no choice but to be strong. But yeah, continuing on in the story, I believe what happens next is that Warris and Marilyn are like out, chilling on a bench one day, and Warris like ends up showing the card that she got from the photographer to Marilyn, and Marilyn's like, "Oh my God, that's so and so. What's his name? Like Tom, something like that."
Terry.
Yeah, Terry McDonald, whatever. He's like a famous photographer. You should definitely go see him. You should be a model and stuff like that. And then Marilyn starts having like, I mean, not Marilyn. Wattis starts having like extreme like cramps or something happening down there with her genitalia. So they end up taking her to the hospital, and this was actually the part of the film that was the best advertisement for Britain ever. Warren says, "I have no money," and and Marilyn says something like, "It's free, don't worry," something like that. Did that happen, or am I just imagining that part?
No, I think something like that happened. Like she said, like you don't have to pay or something.
That was the best, like low key advertisement for the UK. Because I feel like in this film, they're low key flexing on their society, and I'm gonna let them do it. Because in America, Warren's having those cramps and her coochie's tied up, and it can't expel whatever it needs to. You just gotta, you just gotta deal with it, girl. Sorry.
Wow, in America she has to see like the BBL specialist to
Yeah,
get her coochie fixed.
yeah, something, man. She can't, no, she just can't pop up at a hospital with no money.
Yeah, I mean it's good advertisements for Americans, Simon, not
Yeah.
for me.
Okay, all right. Here come the Turkish flex. Everybody's flexing. Anyway, so Marilyn ends up taking Juarez to the wonderful NHS, and she sits down in the gynecologist chair, and the gynecologist is like, "Wait, your coochie looks like a shoelace. What the hell happened here?"
Simon,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I swear these imageries are not gonna work. You're
I'm
gonna get canceled.
I will get canceled. I already put the preface out that, FGM is wrong. I'm just telling the story because, you know what, even though this is a female story, it's still a black story because Waters is black as hell. She's from Africa, right? And, black people, we got to laugh at our trauma and our tragedies. So I'm just following traditions.
Okay.
Anyway, so the gynecologist says, we need to really get you surgery ASAP. But Waris doesn't know much English, so he ends up calling in a Somali nurse, male nurse, who comes in. And the doctor says, tell her she needs to get surgery immediately. And I am ready to help her, no problem. And the Somali guy says, yes, I'll tell her. And then he says in Somali, bitch, what the fuck is wrong with you? How dare you disrespect our culture?
That was so maddening. I was so angry. I was like, fuck men. And fuck Muslim men.
And then the doctor says, the person who did this did a horrible job, and it's too tight and everything like that. And the nurse says, certainly, certainly. How dare you show this white man your coochie? Are you not embarrassed? And then he says to the doctor, she'll think about it. She'll think about it. That was great. And so then Waris is like shedding a little tear. And then she goes like walking in the neighborhood that's like, mostly Muslim, like the no-go zone, as the right wingers should
Ha.
say. What'd you say?
I said ha ha.
That's what the right wingers say. The right wing believes like in every major European country, like basically Turks and Ethiopians and Somalis have just like taken over, and any white person that walks through will just get lynched. This is what they imagine. So, anyway, Waris is walking through like one of those neighborhoods where everybody's wearing niqab and hijab and thobes and stuff like that. And she stops in front of this shop where this woman is wearing a full niqab and she can't see anything except her eyes. And then we have a flashback to uh, her life when she was a kid in Somalia. And about the time she was about 8 or 9 years old, she has her first period. And her mother tells her, now you're finally becoming a woman. Then in the next scene, there's this very old man named Galul Muhammad sitting down with, I believe, Waris's father in front of all of his camels. And, her father says, you will marry this man, Galul Muhammad. And Waris is about 9 or, however young, like very young. And this is a very old, disgusting man. Waris is telling her mother, I can't marry this man, I can't marry this man. And Waris's mother is saying, like, you will because he paid a lot for you, and this is what you have to do. So then Waris, like, gets up in the middle of the night, and she starts running away. Her brother says, where are you going? She says, I'm going to go to grandma in Mogadishu. And her brother says, bitch, is you crazy? and the little boy says, I don't want to leave you, sister. I don't want to be separated. And she's like, it'll be okay. I'll earn money and I'll send it back to you. And she starts walking. And her mother is awake and she sees this happening, but she pretends to go to sleep to not interrupt. Any comments on any of those scenes?
Oh, okay. So the hospital scene, like I said, it was definitely infuriating. Like just to, see Waris crying. And I was like, maybe they should like see if she's okay. Because she's like crying really hard. But like silently but hard at the same time, if that makes sense. And I was just so mad, like, what happened to her, and this man came and just like fucked it all up for her, and she could have gotten the surgery then and there, and she could have like been healthier, basically. Yeah, I was just so mad. And going back to like her flashback, I have like a lot of mixed feelings about it. I know that possibly her mom grew up with these traditions, right? So like this is their culture and their traditions. So I don't want to like culture shame them, but and this is also something that happens in Turkey to this day, marrying little girls to older men for money. There's also economical factors there, political factors there that influence these decisions. So it doesn't really come down to the individual. So I can't, at the end of the day, blame her mom as
Hmm.
well. But yeah, it was just so sad to see that. And like I said, I got like, chills in my back to know that this is something happening in my country and possibly some other places around the world
I mean, it
where,
happens in America too. We still have child marriages, you know?
yeah,
Unfortunately, there are parents out there that are letting their 15-year-old daughters marry, 40-year-old men, stuff like that. It's still happening
yeah.
everywhere.
And absolutely like disgusting to even imagine being in that situation, being with a man who's like your granddad, and
Hmm.
then that man expecting child from you when you are a child, like you're 9, 10 years old. Yeah, that was just hard to watch. And then I think her mom, when she was leaving, I think she knew what was happening, and then she just like sort of let it happen.
Yeah. The thing is, like, Waters was like one of like 12 kids. And I'm like, why has it got to be me, mom, if I was Waters? Like, why me? I got like seven other sisters you could choose from.
She got her period.
Oh, yeah, damn. Damn, I would lie. Like, nah, I ain't bleeding. That's goat blood, mom.
Yeah, but at the same time, if you're a kid and you start bleeding from your vagina, it's scary as fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
So, like, you're gonna tell your mom, like, what is happening to me, mom? You're telling your
Yeah.
mom.
On a more serious note, do you think Galul Muhammad got his camels back? Like he dropped like 30 camels for a 9-year-old bride and like she ran away. Do you think like he came back like, hey, give me my camels back, bruh?
Oh, I was thinking about that too. Sadly, like, why are we thinking about this? But I think, like, because she ran away, it's not really the family's fault, maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
Or maybe they did a deal or something. I don't know.
All right, I'll give you 6 camels back, bruh. I'm like, hey, you should have brushed your teeth. I told you to brush your teeth, Galul. You can't be showing up.
His teeth was fucked up. Yeah.
His teeth were his. I don't. Even though his teeth were bad, they were not as bad as some of the British teeth we saw, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, my last comment about this scene. Earlier I said that Waters was wearing the hijab, and then later she took it off. Now she stopped wearing the hijab during like the club scene when she was out with Marilyn and stuff like that. But I feel like this scene when she went to the Muslim area was sort of symbolizing her sort of like leaving her religion, losing her religion, because she doesn't really come back in the film to like embracing Islam and that part of her culture or heritage. And even though I'm Muslim myself, like I'm fine with apostasy. Like if somebody wants to leave Islam, that's no problem for me. That's their choice. I felt like that's what that part of the film symbolized. When she looked at the niqabi woman, she was like, "That's not what I want for my life. That's not what I want for myself, and I don't want to be a part of this culture anymore." What did you think?
Yeah, I definitely understand it because I didn't go through like anything that Waris went through, but I saw all my life how women got mistreated, and then that was justified through religion. As
Hmm.
in my country, it was justified through Islam. Quran says this, Quran says that, and then we have, wives and mothers beaten up by their husbands until they're killed,
Hmm.
basically, and this is somehow justified in the Quran. And they make up like I know it doesn't say that in the Quran, but people just use it as as a weapon to commit crimes. So that's to me what drew me away from Islam.
Yeah.
And even though in my heart I appreciate all the good things Islam brings to this world and some people, it's just that I cannot really embrace it because of that. And Waris went through like what I went through times, 1,000.
Yeah.
And she's a true survivor, so I would never blame her for abandoning her religion.
Yeah, yeah. And for anybody who might, be upset that, a person who grew up in a Muslim household in a Muslim country like my wife, and then doesn't want to be associated with that religion. Imagine being a black person in America, how you would feel about the flag. Imagine being a Jewish person in Nazi Germany, how would you feel about the country? Imagine being a Palestinian in Gaza, how would you feel about Zionism, right? So, yeah, like a lot of the times people don't take in consideration the view of something from the people who get the left from it, you know? So just keep
Yeah.
that in mind for anybody out there. But moving on in the story, Warris decides to actually go and embrace the opportunity she has to become a model. So she ends up going to Teddy Donaldson, the photographer who gave her the card. She ends up going to his studio, and she walks in and says, "You don't look famous, and you don't look rich." And Teddy is like laying on the couch with looking like he is hungover. Like he looks like he is like drunk off his ass. And yeah, he says, "Well, being rich ain't all it's cracked up to be, because the graveyard is full of people who thought they were all that." And I'm like, that's a bar. That's low key a bar. So Warris like hands Teddy the book that he left at the restaurant, and he's like, "Oh, you kept this for me. You're an honest negress." He keeps dropping the N word all over this film. It's
No,
insane.
he does not.
Actually, weren't you bothered?
He does not, Simon.
Okay,
Stop.
okay, okay. Anyway, Teddy starts taking Waris's pictures, and he's really impressed with her profile because she weighs like 10 kilos, and she has this long East African neck, and so she's kind of shy of the cameras at first, but eventually she gets calm and relaxed. Teddy sends her to the agent, who is a blonde, very bitchy, evil, subtly racist, half French woman who is like, she's the, if the devil wears Prada, the devil's princes and servants wear Hermes, and this woman was draped in Hermes, and so she's like, "Darling, yeah, I don't know what Teddy sees in you, but we're gonna make you a star. Can you walk, darling?" And Wara says, "Yes, I walked to Mogadishu," and she says, "No, darling, can you walk? Walk." And so they bring some like high heels out for Warris to walk in the office of the agent, and she's like, "Oh no, darling, travesty, travesty, take it off." And so they look at Warris's feet, and she says, "My God, your toes have been ravaged." And she looks at Warris's ass and says, "Oh, you have a tushy. You need to lose that." And I'm like, Warris has the flattest ass. Like, what are you talking about? But yeah, the lady says, "You need to go down here to take some more photos and take a taxi." Warren says, "I don't have any money," and the woman says, "Here, here's some money. I want this back later." Stuff like that, right? Any comments on those scenes?
I just love the fact that Warris doesn't have any information about modeling, and then she just goes there and slays the job. It's like, it's like those people who have just those like wisdom in their eyes and some sort of history in their eyes. And
Hmm.
I feel like the actor in the movie really reflected that,
Hmm.
Leah Kabede. And
Hmm.
yeah, there was like that history, that fierceness, that wisdom, that pain in her eyes that just like reflected into the camera. And I just loved that she was, she went through all those things. She even lost her vagina, and she just like slayed like no other white bitch could.
Mm.
And it was just like, I don't know, fun to see that.
I disagree. She wasn't slaying yet. I mean, she had raw talent, but she couldn't even walk in heels yet.
But not walking. I'm talking about that scene where she was posing and they were photographing her in different clothes.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Those scenes, like she just had a natural talent of posing.
Yeah, after she left the agent's office, she goes to that place and she takes a bunch of photos. And yeah, that was actually a fun scene. This is like that middle part of the film is very fun when she's like, taking those first model pics. After that, she goes to the crib, and Marilyn is there, and Marilyn is like teaching her how to walk in heels, and they have like this big, little montage runway show in the hallway of the girls' dorm and stuff like that. So it was
Hmm.
cool. It was cute.
Yeah, yeah. And I absolutely hate the manager, I guess,
Hmm.
manager lady, Lucinda,
Hmm.
in the movie. But yeah, she's just a representation of the industry.
Yeah, yeah. And also the casual racism that's around because she's like, from the deserts of Africa to the runways of the world. I did it. I took the savage and made her a civilized woman. Like,
Yeah. It wasn't like Waris walking from the deserts of Somalia to I forgot the place, to the uh,
central.
central Somalia. I don't know. I
You
forgot
talking about
Mogadishu.
Mogadishu, the capital?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It wasn't her.
Hmm.
When she was 9 years old, she walked all those miles and miles of roads bare
Yeah,
feet.
yeah.
But it was Lucinda.
Okay. But yeah. Anyway, so Warris takes all those pictures. Lucinda sees them and says, "Darling, you're gonna be a star." And so I need to see your passport. And so Warris hands over her Somali passport, and Lucinda says, "Oh, this old thing is gonna cost me a fortune to get you out of the country, darling." And so, yeah, Warris meets up with Marilyn and like gives her like a fancy watch, and Marilyn is shocked, because she can't believe that her friend is now going to be this big famous supermodel. Then, of course, we have that catwalk scene in the hallway, but then Neil comes and says, "There's a woman downstairs to see you, Warris." And Lucinda is down there cursing up a storm and says, "You dirty black bitch, you're in here illegally. You goddamn illegal immigrant." And so her passport is expired, right? And she can't travel anywhere. And she's been in the country, past her time. And so, Lucinda says, "Warris, you're fired." And Neil gets down on one knee and says, "Will you marry me, Warris? And my people have done so much harm to yours. I should do something to give back to you." And that's when I said, that's a white ally. That's an ally right there. But Lucinda's like, "We don't have time for that." And so the Indian woman who owns the hostel says, "Let's make a deal. I can get you a fake passport for about 2,500 pounds or something like that." And so they tried to use a fake passport as Warris and a bunch of other models are leaving for France for a job. But Warris gets her ass picked up by the police and thrown in jail. Any comments on any of those scenes?
Yeah, there's just like so many moments here where I connect with Waris, not to the same level of like what she went through. Obviously, mine is not on the same level, but I just remember like when my visa was expired in Serbia, and like I was applying for jobs, and I had to convince the job owner to get me a visa, and I had to tell them that my visa was expired. So
Oh
it was
wow.
just like very like anxiety filled months for me in there.
Mhm.
And I was just like always every time I saw like a police officer or something, I just got like very tense.
Mhm.
And like at the end, I paid a fine and it was okay. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't that big of a deal. I didn't get picked up by the police, but it was just so like I don't know. I never went through something like that, so to experience it, it was very like just anxiety.
Yeah.
So I definitely like can relate to a level. But yeah, and also like, why did they like trust the Indian lady? Like, I don't
I
know.
mean, she seemed like she got it. You know what I mean? She was doing deals here and there. That Indian woman reminds me of your mama. Like I feel like your mama will be like, "I can get you good passports, good price."
I don't know. It's like this woman, the Lucinda. She's like this, director of the magazine that is uber popular. So I don't. I feel like she should have had some connections to get a visa.
Exactly, but Lucinda, she's in the model business, right? So she's used to like dealing with like angry coke dealers. She's used to dealing with like pimps who want to get their girls on the runway. So she knows the kind when she sees one. So when she met the the Indian woman who ran the hotel, she's like, "I can do business with her. She's in the game too." You feel me?
I just thought that was like dumb. It's like I didn't understand why Lucinda needed the Indian lady. I feel like she has money. So she should be able to like just find a way.
Yeah. Well, anyway, it didn't work at all. So, yeah. Anyway, while she's in the jail, like we get a flashback of Waris's life of when she made it to Mogadishu. She was walking for a long ass time in the desert. She almost got raped in the back of a truck that picked her up, but she like knocked the guy out with the brick, and then ends up making it to like her grandmother's house. And we find out that Waris's mother actually ran away with her father to get married because her family didn't approve of her marrying that man who was a nomad. And then, Waris coming back to her grandmother, the family that lives around the grandmother doesn't approve of Waris, but the grandmother does. She likes Waris. And so Waris ends up like staying there for a few years, even though, she's not really welcome. And yeah, anyway, Waris's bail gets paid by the Indian woman who gets Waris out of jail. And, she says, sorry, Waris, I should have checked. It's my mistake. You don't owe me any money and stuff like that. And yeah, Waris actually deserved to stay in the UK because she ended up moving to the UK to work as a maid for some rich Somali family who was related to hers. And so she worked at the embassy for Somalia until a war broke out in Somalia. And, instantly when that happened, she became a refugee by the UK. But she didn't know she had to renew her passport. So legally, she could stay in the UK for some time. And that's what she found out. Any comments on any of those scenes?
Yeah, I mean, they also, along with like her flashback to Mogadishu, they also show like how she came to London.
Hmm.
And basically she just goes into the embassy to work for them, and she never gets out, and they just treat her like some sort of like a Cinderella story.
Yeah.
The lady who's there, the wife of the ambassador,
Hmm.
they just treat her like a maid.
Yeah.
And yeah, she
Now,
doesn't get out, she doesn't have the chance to learn the language, and that's how she spends her first 6 years in the country.
now this is one thing that they changed in the film that I sort of don't like. Waris was actually the niece of the ambassador.
Mm.
So her uncle was actually the ambassador. It's not like she was like some servant girl just brought in with no relation. And in the film, they make it seem like they're just like abusing this girl, keeping her locked up in the at the bottom, of the house or whatever. When probably in reality, she was probably like chilling with her uncle. You know what I mean? I don't know. What do you think about that? That they changed that part of the story?
I mean, I don't know what she actually wrote in the book,
Yeah,
so
like I
I don't
said,
know
she
how.
she said she went there as a maid. That they got her out of Somalia because they got her a job working as a maid, quote unquote. But really, she just went to stay with her uncle, who was the ambassador to
Mm.
Somalia.
I mean, maybe they still kept her in the house, so maybe that part was the true, because of like their religion and their culture, so they didn't want her to get involved in the club scene, the partying, and all sorts of things. So maybe that's why she actually didn't end up learning English. But
Hmm.
yeah, I mean, it doesn't really make that much of a difference in the context of the story, I think. It could have kept it like as more loving, but they just maybe wanted to make it more tragic, that part as well.
Yeah.
I don't know, like it's okay still, like if they change that part, really.
Okay. I kind of don't like that because it makes it seem like, oh, my life was really this hard. And I'm not discounting the fact Warris had a hard life. But if, being related to somebody in diplomacy automatically, I think, makes you a part of a different class of people in a society.
Yeah, but
So,
even though you're related, if you're like living in somebody's house, they can make you do things still,
yeah, they
and they
could
can
make,
still treat you bad.
right. But I don't think she was like washing dishes with her bare hands and like running across the floor with the mop. By the way, in the film, Warris is putting this mop everywhere. I saw her put the mop on a TV. I'm like, this girl sucks at. Low key, I got to keep it real. Warris is the is the typical pretty girl because sort of sucks at everything else she does in this film. She's like a bad maid. She's like a bad worker, like at McDonald's. She can't really cook. She, she becomes a wife later and never has sex with her husband. Like she really sucks at everything except being pretty. Let's keep it a buck.
Wow, you know, that's not what all women are good for: cleaning,
I'm not
cooking,
saying
and
that's what
having
all women are
sex.
good. That's not what I'm saying. What all women are good for. What I'm saying is that Waris kind of fills the stereotype for pretty girls.
Ah, well, okay. It's still
No,
sexist what you're saying. I'm not going
okay,
to repeat myself.
okay. I apologize. I'm sorry.
Okay, go on.
No, no. I'm sorry. Here, you continue with the story then. I'll check myself.
Okay, well, yeah, like you said, she gets out of jail and they tell her she can actually stay, but she can't stay for that long,
Right.
right? So then, yeah, they have to like still get her a working permit, and then she also has to like um, pay for something related to the passport or pay for bail.
Yeah, no, the Lucinda says, you're gonna work for me to, pay off all your debts and stuff like that, right? And yeah, she doesn't have a way to permanently stay, so she ends up marrying Neil. And they have this wedding at the courthouse. And Neil says, "Oh, don't worry, I'm just doing this to help you. I got this really hot Polish girl, blonde, blue eyes, big tits. Don't worry, I'll be totally cool." So Neil and Waris end up moving in together to this apartment, and Neil is saying like, "So where are you gonna sleep?" Waris says, "The couch." Uh, and Neil is like, "No, no, we need to like sleep together because the home office people they might come and check, so we have to stay ahead of them and stuff like that." But Waris is not with that at all. Any comments on the Neil and Waris relationship?
Yeah, I don't like Neil. I don't like his intentions. Yeah, maybe he wanted to help her, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, it felt like he was also psychologically abusing her
Mm.
after all that she's been through. Because, like, saying things like, oh, the inspectors might come, so we should sleep together in the same bed. And then, like, trying to touch her. Like, he doesn't do anything to her. Like, he doesn't rape her or anything, but he just insists constantly. And he's trying to always like get her and always have an actual romance with her when she is not interested at all.
Yeah, but they were both being a bit dishonest. I mean, Neil, of course, was lying about having a girlfriend, and Warris didn't tell him about her surgery and her, change that she had, right?
Yeah, but why would she have to tell that since they're not marrying for love? Like
Hmm.
he literally said it in the beginning, my people hurt your people, so let me help you with this at least.
Yeah,
Like that was literally the premise of their union.
yeah,
And
yeah,
nothing love related, nothing sexual related. So she doesn't need to explain what's going down in her vagina to him.
yeah. I see where that's coming from. I got you, but both of them are just trying to bilk the system. They're trying to.
Yeah.
She's trying to stay in the country, and he's trying to,
Get a
get.
hot girl.
Yeah, getting her monkey, right? I was trying to make it
Yeah.
rhyme. But
I
it,
think like he was expecting at one point Boris would fall in love with him
hmm
because he was like supposed to be this nice guy that helped her, but
hmm
it's just like did not happen.
yeah. But like you said earlier, she might be asexual, but I think more she's really just shy about having sex. And also maybe she still holds on to her culture, right?
And
There's a,
also she does not love Neil.
yeah, she also doesn't, yeah, she doesn't love Neil. I mean, it's hard to love Shaggy Do, right?
I mean she's not attracted to him.
Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, anyway, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but earlier in the film, she already had the surgery to fix um, her FGM. So, yeah, but anyway, now that she's married to Neil, she can stay in the country longer, right? And she ends up going to this photo shoot scheduled by Lucinda, where she's going to be shooting with Teddy, the guy who discovered her. And it's going to be a nude photo shoot. And so, Waris is a bit, shy when she does it the first time. And so, but she ends up doing it because Teddy tells her, this shoot can change your life. And so she ends up, laying down and, baring her breast and getting fully naked, but she's wearing like this white cloth sheet. And they take like some excellent pictures. And how I felt about this scene was like, you know, it, changing the music. This film could be seen as a bit of like exploitation or inspirational. And I think the music in this film, with like the piano melody that they have that starts off eerie, but then it goes upbeat, right? It starts off with minor keys and then becomes like major. Like in that scene when she's like laying down and this white guy is like standing over her taking like naked pictures, in a sense, it seems exploitative because she's not getting paid. She got butt naked. Like she could be killed for that because of her background and culture and stuff like that. But she's doing it to, get away from where she came from. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely felt like that question pop up in my head as I was watching it as well. Like, is this exploiting a woman?
Hmm.
Especially a woman who's a black woman who comes from like a poor nation, right? Who doesn't have the same means like when compared to other women
Yeah.
possibly in the modeling business.
Yeah.
So yeah, it felt like that a little bit, but also there was the connection she had with the photographer,
Yeah.
and the photographer like absolutely adored her,
Yeah.
and he discovered her, and I think they had a good friendship.
Hmm.
At first, I thought like, oh, is he gonna try to do something to her? Is he gonna try to like touch her or something? I didn't remember this part of the movie.
Hmm.
But then when that didn't happen and he sort of encouraged her, it just felt a bit more peaceful
Yeah.
in my head. And like I said, it was like also Waris reclaiming her womanhood, detaching more from her culture that put her down, like the parts
Hmm.
of her culture that put her down, not
Yeah.
her whole culture.
Hmm.
She's still Somalian, she still, I think, loves her country, but there's just that part that really betrayed her as a woman.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she was just like stripping off that part of herself,
Yeah.
stripping off her traumas. The one thing I didn't like here is that at the end of the scene, Harold Jackson shows up. I don't know if you remember that. And it's Waris's imagination. And he comes to the
Oh
bed with
yeah.
her, and then they kiss. And that's how the scene ends.
Oh, that was so random. So is that like signifying like she really like has a deep crush on this guy she danced with one time in the club like a year ago? Like
I guess, like, I don't know. That was so weird. I wish they didn't add that there. And
I
that
did.
moment belonged to Waris only.
No, I mean, it's like you said, it's her embracing her femininity and she wants to be loved, right? And I, Anthony Mackie, once again, being the romantic interest in this film is like, Darth Vader, like being your father and you're okay with it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, like Voldemort is there and you're like, yep, he's actually a decent guy. Something about
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie is just off.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was okay because just like any girl, especially when we're young, you imagine those moments with your crush or whatever, like the moment that you would kiss, the moment that you would have sex, whatever. So maybe for her it was something like that,
Hmm.
going back to like that sort of early 2000s rom-com idea a
Hmm.
little bit. I just didn't like it that well because it was so random.
Yeah.
Because I was like, wait, how did he get here? Is this a dream? What is happening?
Yeah. No, I mean, those scenes were touching because it was like, her getting out of her shell and finally breaking free. But I wish they also showed like the danger she was putting her life through because you know how it is for women that come from, Muslim majority countries, conservative countries, like, even if you're outside of the country, if they see you on social media being naked or doing things that aren't considered respectable, you could be in real danger. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I got married to you, and somehow it was like trending on Twitter. It
Hmm.
wasn't trending, But just some people saw it and they made a news out of it, and them like just being racist and bigoted. They were saying like our girls are, you know, rotting away with these strangers, like that
Hmm.
sort of thing. I was like, what the fuck is going on?
Yeah. Right. So, like, women have been hurt for less, than what Waris did, right? And imagine if there was like this traditional Turkish girl that moved to Germany and then started up an OnlyFans and like really advertised her Turkishness as a part of her selling point. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah.
I think there would possibly be a lot of death threats, wouldn't there? Or tell me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. I mean, we shame our women when they just wear like leotards on stage. So,
Wow.
yeah, that would
Yeah.
be a lot of hatred.
Yeah. But yeah, that was one part of the film I felt like was missing. But other than that, that was a cool scene. Moving forward, what happens next? I think,
Basically,
yeah, go ahead.
she's in the apartment with Neil,
Hmm.
and Neil is saying things like, "You are my wife. Where
Hmm.
were you all day?" and things like that. And Waris is saying, "I'm not your wife. Like, can you please stop acting like we are actually married?" And they go to sleep at night, and the inspectors come. It's like
Hmm.
4 a.m. or 3 a.m. in the morning or something like that, and Waris is sleeping on the couch. So she gets up, and yeah, the inspectors come. They ask some questions, and Neil is trying to act like they're married, and he forces her to kiss him.
Hmm.
And because the police officers are there, she can't do anything. She kisses her, and then they have like this sort of fight.
Yeah.
And yeah, basically also like that night they sleep together in the same bed, but they don't want to. I mean, she
Hmm.
doesn't want to, and Neil tries to like do something with her, and he says like, "I love you. Can't you just like try to love me?"
Hmm.
And we learn that she actually doesn't have a Polish girlfriend, of course. And yeah,
Shocker. Oh my
yeah,
God.
shocker. And basically, after the morning after that, Neil says, "Sorry, I won't touch you." And that's when Waris gets her residency permit
Yeah.
for the long term.
Hmm.
And she just says, "Thank you, and we're getting divorced."
Drops her ring on the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there was that scene when they were arguing, and she was like making like a sardine and peanut butter and jelly sandwich. When she was holding the knife, it was actually very tense for me because she was holding it like in a stabbing position the entire time. I don't know if you noticed that.
Yeah, I did notice it as well.
Yeah,
It
very
was,
intense scenes.
yeah, it made you think like, could she do anything to like protect herself?
Yeah, yeah. But overall, that whole arc with Neil, that was probably the most complete arc, I would say, and one of the more complex relationships that they had in this film that has some depth and layers to it, in my opinion. Right?
Yeah.
I think the relationships that work best in this film are Marilyn and Waters and Neil and Waters. Right? Those make the
Yeah.
most sense.
The thing about that whole dynamic is that the brutal reality of however modern a society is, you still have to deal with shit patriarchy gives to you.
Mm-hmm.
And Juarez has been through a lot because of the patriarchal control in her country.
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to England, one of the most modern in quotation marks,
Mm-hmm.
countries, and yet she still has to deal with this guy that tries to exert his power over her just because they are married on paper, and that
I,
was not their agreement.
I can see that the film is critiquing different types of patriarchy, but there is a type of patriarchy that Waris is okay with. She's okay with Terry Donaldson taking nude pictures of her for free and then making money off of it. So she's okay with white male patriarchal capitalism, but she's not okay with a white guy who got married with her and maybe wants some coochie, right?
Okay, first of all, it's not for free. Yes, maybe he's not directly paying her. She's paying her debts with the money. And plus, on top of it, it's a shoot that would make her famous and that would make her more money. So it's not like, oh, like I'm just doing this for a favor. It's not something like that. And second of all, at least in that part, yeah, you can critique the system, but the person himself, Terry, is not disrespectful to Varys.
And I don't feel like Neil was disrespectful to Waris. He really liked the girl and she turned him down. And maybe he yelled at her once, but generally his heart was in the right place because even though she turned him down, he still saved her when the home office came. So, what?
He could have. They would have been fine if they didn't kiss at that part. You know, nobody's expecting you to get up and kiss in 4 a.m.
Okay, but that did help because they were obviously living in different parts of the apartment, and that kiss might have, sealed the deal for them to be able to solidify their marriage in the eyes of the law.
You don't know that. We don't know that. And it could have been like a hug, then a kiss. Like he could have just hold her from her waist and just hug her or embrace her or something like that instead of a kiss. And anyway, I'm not discussing that part.
The point is I think what you're trying to say is like the film is critiquing different types of power of patriarchy, right? And I would say like all of us live with different types of power that we refuse, try to rebel against, and some that we accept. White supremacy is evil, right? But I would rather live under white supremacy as it exists in Hungary than it is white supremacy in America, right?
Yeah.
At least in this point in my life. And I'm not saying that any type of white supremacy is okay. But, for you, the patriarchy that exists in Turkey is bad, but you're still living under patriarchy in Hungary. And on top of that, we're married, where even if I tried to fight against it, patriarchy is still being enforced here, even against my own will.
Yeah, I understand that. I can't go to Mars.
Hmm.
I have to live somewhere, and
Hmm.
all of the places around the world have those things. Like you said, they have white supremacy, they have patriarchy. So I can't do everything. Yes, I agree with that part, but I
Hmm.
just think that's uh, specifically in their relationship, there wasn't any power for enforcement from Terry towards Varys. There was a systematic power structure, but it wasn't really related to their relationship.
I got you. Terry is nice, even though he's a part of the system that is still exploitative of women. Let's keep it real. Like the
Yeah,
modeling industry is hella exploitative to the models.
yeah. But yeah, anything else that you want to say?
No, no, I just like arguing with you. You can continue.
Okay. But yeah, basically after that, Waris has her big like out, big shine, and we see this montage of her walking the runway. She's like going abroad, traveling, and there's like this cool scene where she's like in some sort of niqab, and then
Mhm.
she transforms that into a gown on the runway, and yeah, she's
Can I
walking.
can I say
Yeah.
this about the gown, by the way? At the beginning of the film, when she's shoplifting, like this yellow dress drops on the floor and she looks at it and she thinks it's nice, but she can't buy it. And that made me think about that runway scene when she walks, she's wearing a yellow gown similar to that one.
Okay, I didn't notice that. But anyway, yeah, she gets like a silk press and she changes her hair. I kind of like her hair curly. I feel like because she's so like long and slender and skinny, when she gets like straight hair, it's like just very how to say that, like ordinary, and just makes her more, I don't know, slender.
I was not surprised that you said you liked your hair and that everybody in this film was like, Waris is so beautiful because there's something about when black people don't do our hair, white people just seem to love it more. I don't know what that is. Like black people, we like, how they say like a black woman with a bad wig is definitely gonna get like a rich white husband. You know what I mean? Like that's the type of energy Waris was having. She would not have got that modeling gig had she had like her braids in and a sew in. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You like what you don't have. I mean,
Mm.
that's also something that they say for like girls. I don't know if
Hmm.
you ever heard of that. Like, Girls with straight hair want curly hairs, and girls with curly hairs want straight hairs. But anyway, I just think like her hair is more characteristic when it's curly, like
Yeah,
the in the first part of the movie.
yeah, yeah.
And straight hair is just very, very like ordinary model hair.
I got you.
But yeah, and she basically ends up moving to New York,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to say about her modeling montage?
No, Silk Press was good. She looked like Tyra Banks. She really glowed up. Funny scene after she does the runway stuff. Marilyn is still working at the store and she's showing the magazine to like people in line, saying, "This is my sister. This is my sister. Trust me." I found her in the loo. And I'm like, that just reminds me of like your mom saying, my son," when she shows pictures of us to like random people. It's just funny.
Well, I mean, you get if you get married, your daughter's husband is your son.
Yes, yes. It's just funny as hell.
It is. I mean, yeah, if you think about it, that was funny.
Yeah, that was hella cute. Marilyn was like, I'm a good white ally. See? I turned this refugee into a model.
Wow. Okay. We don't need to have like under assignment thoughts. Uh,
What do you mean, Simon thoughts?
no, like Simon thoughts under the actual lines.
No, I'm just giving my take. That's the whole point of the movie reviews.
Okay.
Anyway,
Um,
yeah, she
yeah.
moves to New York and she's got this banging apartment. Like, apartments is sick. It's really crazy how like you could just come up modeling like that. You know what I mean? Anyway, just eat air and think about devouring rice, and you can have like 5,000 square feet in Brooklyn.
Wow.
But anyway, she ends up moving to New York, and then she remembers Harold Jackson, and she like searches through like her old notes, and she finds Harold Jackson's address.
Actress.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then she goes to his brownstone. She walks inside, and she sees Harold Jackson, and she's like, "Hello, Harold," and he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "You don't remember London?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, Bubble Jacket Girl." And so Harold Jackson's spicy Dominican Latina walks up and says, "Who's this?" And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry. My friend lives down the hall." And like Warris like runs away, and Harold Jackson's like, "That crazy girl." And his spicy Latina says, "Well, she was pretty." And yeah, any comments on that?
That was just kind of unnecessary to have that. I don't know. Maybe it was to show that she all this time she had a crush on him. But then like you come all this way, girl. You walked the desert. You've been like you survived female genital mutilation. Can't you survive a spicy Latina? At least like ask her, like ask him, "Oh, are you like dating this girl? Are you married? Is this your sister?" Like do something. Instead of running out and cry.
Why ask the obvious? Why ask something so obvious though?
It was not. He said it was her roommate later in the movie.
Okay, are you really going to believe Anthony Mackie has a
Yes.
Jennifer Lopez lookalike as just a roommate? Stop playing.
Oh my god.
That's like saying, "Hey, Akdi, you see me with this Naomi Campbell lookalike, but hey, she is just my friend." Like, what is that?
Oh,
What are
so
you
you
talking?
cannot be friends with any attractive woman. Is that what you're saying?
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
That's what
Because
you said just now.
no, because black men don't cheat, except Anthony Mackie. He is the only one.
Oh, you're just being ridiculous right now.
I am a little bit. I am a little bit. But come on, in that situation, it was more than likely, that's not his roommate. Come on now.
That's how he explained it in the film. What if the spicy Latina girl has a boyfriend?
Yeah, the boyfriend who just so happens to let his girlfriend live with Anthony Mackie.
Yeah. Okay, you know what?
Hey,
Sexism
I
is
have a
real.
wife. I have a wife, but I let her stay with her guy friends all the time.
What's wrong with that?
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Wow. Okay. Well, according to what you're saying, you can't have any girl gendered friends.
That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying.
Or you can
No.
only have ugly ones.
No, it's just the way. No, it's the situation. All right, because he was walking into his apartment with a beautiful woman following after him. That's different than like if he was outside at a restaurant and another woman was sitting with him. That could be a coworker. That could be a friend. That could be a old college friend. Whatever. Right?
He
It's
said they
different if
were
a woman is walking
roommates.
inside of your house with you.
Yet, because they live in the same house, because they are roommates.
That just sounds crazy. No, that sounds
That's how
crazy.
he explained it, and I'm just going with his character, what his character said in the movie. Like,
Have
I'm
you
not
ever
trying to make scenarios here,
have
and
you
I
ever
think you're
had
doing a disservice to men.
No, I'm not doing a disservice to men because it would be the same thing. If I saw a woman walking into the apartment with a guy, I'm going to assume more likely that's a boyfriend, husband, whatever, friend with benefits.
Yeah, you would.
But if I see a woman outside with a guy just sitting at a table, they could be relatives, they could be friends, they could be coworkers. There's a difference.
Yeah, I know that's what you would assume, but this girl literally hold on to that number for I don't know how many years. Like 10 years she had the number, 10 years she had the crush on him, and then she doesn't even have the nerve to ask, who is she?
Okay, but she doesn't have the right. She doesn't know. He barely remembers her.
Still, at least ask for a coffee or something. I would have, Simon. Like, I'm not gonna just run out after fantasizing about him for 10 years.
Okay. All right. That's bold. That's really bold. Like if you see a guy out with a woman, you could probably assume that it's his girlfriend, and you ask him out on a date right there.
I'm not gonna ask him out on a date.
You
I
said
can
coffee.
say, yeah, can we have a coffee like there on the corner? It's been such a long time. I haven't seen you. Like, I don't know, something.
Okay.
Or isn't it crazy that we just run into each other? Do you want to grab a coffee? See how easy that was?
Okay. Okay. I have the feeling that the person in here, Verl Will, might be my uncle. I don't know if this is my Uncle Verl, but if this is my Uncle Verl, shout out to you, Uncle Verl, for listening. I would love to know what you think about this. You could open the mic if you want to, but yeah, I think most people would assume, hey, that person is gonna be that they're getting some booty. Most people don't have straight roommates of the opposite sex. Have you ever had one, or would you ever have one?
I didn't have one because I lived with my best friend in
Okay.
college. But I would. In fact, one of my friends right now who's living in Hungary, she has a male roommate. They barely see each other.
Okay. Okay. And you think that they don't have any romantic relationship at all?
No.
Okay.
I know so. I know so.
Okay. All right. All right. It's just more likely uncommon.
Maybe before, but I think people are like considering every option now. There are a lot
Okay.
of like women who get along more with men and vice versa.
Yeah. I'll let that go. I'll let it go. Shall we move on?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. Basically, after she runs away from Harold Jackson, right? Harold Jackson is like ranting and raving at this coffee shop. Man, I told you, I saw this girl. She came up to me, and now it's the girl on the magazine. And I was like, bro, why are you yelling in this good white people's establishment, scaring all these good white folks? Like you have the cast of Friends behind you. What are you talking
That was a bit overdone. I can agree to that. Like he was
about?
shouting.
Like I could understand if it was a bar. He was in a cafe at 2 p.m. in Midtown Manhattan. Like, what
Talking
are you
about this girl.
yelling? And that's what. All right, but yeah, basically they sort of like fast forward a bit because Lucinda is on the phone and says, "I can't believe it. This girl Waters, she quits modeling and goes back to Africa." And they said that they're making a movie about her, the day that changed my life. And Lucinda says, "I changed her life." And so they skip over all of Waris going back to Africa, reuniting with her mom, reuniting with her brother after like 20 years and stuff. And then they
Hmm.
jump ahead to Waris like going to be interviewed by this magazine. And she says, "I don't want to talk about me being a model anymore. I want to talk about something more personal." And then she starts talking about how she had female genital mutilation. She says when she was 3 years old, her mother took her to see the Medca. The Medca, made her open up her legs and cut out everything that was inside of her. And there's a flashback scene too where it's very brutal and no music, no sound. It's just, three women, well, two women and a baby. And her mother is like holding open her daughter's legs as this other woman like cuts into her with a rusty blade and then ties up her coochie with like thorns and a needle, like thorns from like a bush or something, while eagles fly overhead. The baby had to stay there. The mother left her there by the rocks, ran to go see the other 12 kids, then came back to see Wattis, who had an infection at the time. She took Wattis to go get treatment. Wattis came back sometime later to see the place where she had her genital mutilation, and there was nothing there. The birds had all eaten up her vaginal parts. And that was the end of the interview. And she walks away. And this white woman she was talking to is just shaken to her core. She is just, she is trembling after hearing that story. What did you think of that scene?
Yeah. This is why, like, in the beginning, I said this movie had a effect on, like, how I sort of claimed my womanhood, maybe a little bit, because it made me grateful that I didn't have an experience like this.
This is the goodbye Uncle Tom for feminists.
Yeah. And this is one of the most striking scenes that I've ever watched on TV. And just like the everything, the scenery, the blood on the rocks, and her screams alone, like you said, no music behind it. And also the way, like, the mom and the other woman acts like this is just a part of life for them. And it was just like very touching, very brutal to watch, very dark. And yeah, I think the first time I watched this movie, I like cried my eyes out in this
Yeah,
scene.
yeah. I watched the film twice, like I said before, and even watching that scene the second time, it doesn't take away from the brutality of it. Um, everybody's really sensitive about their genitalia, and I think when it comes to guys, there's sort of like jokes about getting kicked in the nuts, but there is no equivalent to like women when it comes to like sensitivity for their genitalia. In fact, I think there are some people that think if you kick a woman in between her legs, she won't feel it and stuff like that. But it's just as sensitive down there for women too, right? And I wasn't expecting the movie to show sort of like the baby girl with her legs open and blood coming out and stuff like that. They do this aerial shot where you sort of like see everything happening, and it's just brutal, right? And
Yeah.
it's sort of like once again takes the fun out of the jokes we make about our genitalia, guys get kicked in the nuts, stuff like that. And yeah, I guess like the only part of that I can find funny in this is that every time Warris describes, FGM, women get the same expression on their face that guys make when they see like a guy, in a film like land in between a bar between his legs or something, or get like the shit kicked out of his testes. Like that's possibly the only funny thing I can find in all of this. Other than that, it's really bad. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And just to clear things up, I guess, yeah, it doesn't hurt as much, I think, if we get kicked in our vagina, but we're talking about cutting here and then
Hmm.
sewing. So, of course, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt like really, really bad. But yeah, and then also, like, I think one of the things that makes it so brutal is that this is a child, and you see like her playing with her mom 1 second ago, and then another second she's getting like mutilated in her private parts. So that's also like you're just imagining, how just really, I don't know, there's no words to describe it.
Hmm.
Describe how she might be feeling as a child, clueless of everything. And you experience this immense pain down there. and you're bleeding and you don't know this other woman, and then your mom leaves you for how many hours, and then she comes back, and yeah, it's there's nothing to describe this whole scene basically.
Yeah.
And that's probably how I would be reacting, like all these white women who reacted. I
Yeah.
would probably like be shaking in my chair, crying my eyes out. Possibly like because it's a situation where I can't even get up and hug her
Yeah.
because that wouldn't do anything. You
Hmm.
know, I know
Hmm.
that would not help her.
Yeah, one of the worst things I could have ever done for myself is go down the rabbit hole of FGM. And there's levels to it, right? And it seems like Juarez had like the worst kind of FGM too, which is level 3, which is where they clear out the vulva, outside, inside, the clitoris, and sew it up. And you can look this up. There's different levels to it. Some people just, take off the vulva. Some people just snip the clit. Some people do, both. Some people don't do inside stuff like that. And yeah, it's it's very it gets dark very quickly when you
Yeah.
go into more of the details of this. And yeah, the film basically wraps everything. Well, it wraps up part of the story in a bow. Basically, Warris becomes an ambassador to like the UN, and she does this big speech at the end, and sort of everybody is there. It's like one of those traditional moments where the hero gives their last speech, and she talks to the UN about FGM, and she's speaking in front of all these leaders. And then at the end of the movie, it says Warris became like an ambassador to the UN in 1997, and unfortunately, about 100 million women have been affected by FGM. And even immigrants to Western countries are still doing this practice in Western countries, which is crazy. And yeah, Warris has been continuing the fight to advocate to end this horrific practice. Any comments on the ending?
Yeah. I think when the first time I watched this movie, her speech also made me cry, especially
Mhm.
following that like FGM scene. So, but the second time watching it, it felt a bit acted out a little
Mhm.
bit, but I still appreciate it. And obviously, like she speaks of something that is very important, and she basically says like, I still love my family, I still love my mom, but it's like this practice of trying to make us virgins until we're married off and our husband is the one who opens our vagina again and insert himself, and these type of things. Like she really speaks the truth of it, and I think it's a good ending overall for the movie to see her in this high place and standing up for basically women like herself
Yeah.
who go through this. So yeah.
Yeah, it's good. I disagree about the final speech. Final speech is moving. It's powerful. It's impactful. I like it. I like how it's delivered. Shout out to the actress once again who plays Wardis. One thing that I didn't like though about the last scene was that I know for a fact um, Marilyn and definitely Harold Jackson would not get a security clearance to enter the UN. Like the way they sort of like walk in the UN, like as if like there's no checks and security, makes me think like yeah, the security here might as well have been the October 7th Israeli guards at the Hamas border. Like they just let everybody in. Like, and the
Wow.
and the weirdest thing too is that Harold Jackson walks in and he walks past Marilyn, and Marilyn doesn't say hi or anything. They like sort of like walk past each other, like as if they don't know each other too. You get what I'm saying?
Do they know each other?
Yeah, because Harold gave Marilyn the number or the address for him to give to Waters.
Oh, but it was like 5 years ago.
Okay, but come on, come on. That's Anthony Mackie. How could you not recognize the most evil nigga that's
Simon,
ever?
I
Don't you?
forgot to mention something.
What's up?
Also, if I don't know if you noticed, but throughout the movie, there are like 3 or 4 scenes that hints to water.
Mm,
And I think they're also trying to, make a moment there with the water as well, because Somalia, people don't have enough water in Somalia. Like when she's taking a shower, there was that
Mhm.
scene where Marilyn is watching Waris, and Waris is like turning off and on the shower water
Mhm.
constantly when she's scrubbing her. She doesn't leave it on.
Mhm.
And also like when she's washing the dishes, and also even there when she was like about to go to the stage in the UN, there's
Mhm.
the water fountain or like
Mhm.
the water machine,
Mm.
and they zoom into the water as well. So I
Mm.
think there was an under hint of that as well in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah, I think water might have some significance in relation to Somalia. Also, water is something that is molded into different shapes, and Waris takes many different shapes in this film. At first, she's the desert flower, and then she becomes a woman in a foreign country. Then later, she becomes her own self, her full realized self as an adult. This supermodel who's now becoming an advocate. So maybe that's also what the water symbolizes. I was noticing more the animals in this film, right? And I don't think it's a coincidence. At the beginning, Waris is like bringing new life into this world from a female goat, and then later on, there's a film of like a camel sucking from its mother, right? So I think there's also hints in here about motherhood and nature and what's natural for animals too, and
Hmm.
how we're sort of like no different. Like motherhood is a part of us, femininity is a part of us as people, right? It's just we sort of twist it from nature. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, we create our own. We manipulate our like cultures into fitting to power structures,
Yeah,
and that's how we end up with practices like genital mutilation.
yeah. We divorce ourselves from nature, right? Just let the pussy be. Let the
I
pussy
know,
be
right?
free.
I love my pussy.
There
Thank you,
we go.
pussy.
There we go. I love it too, girl. That's
It's
right.
fine.
You can say it, but I can't. Come on now.
Oh, you can say it.
Anyway,
But maybe your uncle is listening to us, so don't say
yo, it's gonna be wild hearing this in the playback when he hears the part of me talking about my circumcision. Like,
it.
that's gonna be the wildest part for everybody listening. But I still stand on what I said, man. I heard you can grow your foreskin back. I heard you
Oh
can get
my
it back.
God. Just let it go. Just let it go.
But no, as a woman, Acti, do circumcised penises look better than uncircumcised?
Circumcised penis looks the best.
Okay, it's like a little cap. It looks like a little
Yeah,
like.
but we don't know what's under that cap. All that gunk that like collects there. Oh, I don't know. I can't do it personally. Maybe it's cultural, because in Turkey, like 99% of the men are circumcised.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. Personally, I like circumcised dick.
But do you think that guy, that one Turkish guy who's uncircumcised, might get more pussy just because women are like, "What is that? Yo, how are you?" That one Turkish guy who's uncircumcised might just have the edge. He might have the competitive advantage.
I don't think so. I think most Turkish women prefer circumcised dick.
They only prefer that husband dick because they only get one in their life.
That's not true.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, this was an interesting film overall. Listen, I feel like the this movie is like an album that has like some undeniable hits on it. Like there are two or three scenes in this film you can't front on. You know what I mean? The,
Hmm.
the FGM scene when she's a baby, when she exposes herself to Marilyn. You know what I mean? The scene with the Somali guy like cursing her out in the doctor's office. You can't front on those scenes. But then
Yeah.
other parts of this film feel a bit janky.
Yeah.
In any other film, it would be just mediocre. So I got to give this film, even though I love it, but as a film, I give it maybe a six, right? And that's not me hating. I just feel like there's just bangers and then a lot of stuff here that just doesn't make sense. And overall, there's parts of the story that don't make sense, right? She left her brother, that's sort of like left out of there,
Yeah.
unresolved. Her relationship with her mother, unresolved. Harold Jackson, unresolved, right? And yeah, so that's sort of like bothersome for me when I think about this film. But the impact it has is powerful, right? So, but overall, I stand on my six. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. There are good parts to it, like all of the scenes you mentioned. I agree. Plus, the acting is not bad.
Hmm.
The acting is good. I think maybe like because of the time it was made, some of it doesn't hold up to today. Like if
Hmm.
we watch it right now, and the story is powerful, you cannot deny that. And could have been executed better, yes. Like if they redid this movie today, could have been done better, yes, maybe. Do we really need it? No. So I'm gonna give it like a 6.5 as
Hmm.
well because yeah, it is lacking some refinements.
Yeah, yeah. I don't want to like hate this review later, so I'm gonna say I do think you should watch this film. It is not a bad film at all, right? It's just because it's telling such a big story of somebody's life, right? Who had an incredible life, whether she made up some parts or some parts were changed, whatever. It's still an incredible story, inspirational story, and everybody should watch it just for the bangers in here. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But um, I like things that are complete, you know, and I like things that sort of make sense. And Harold Jackson could have been cut in this film, nobody would have missed him. Her
yeah,
brothers, the scenes about her brother could have been cut, nobody would have missed him, right? There's a lot here that's sort of like fluff, you know. So
yeah. But yeah, I still think like if you watch this movie, you would still enjoy it,
mhm,
even though you might find some parts tacky. Like just the overall story and those scenes we mentioned are worth watching it, I think.
yeah,
So yeah, if you're in the mood for a social feminist movie,
hmm,
go for it.
yeah. All right. So I think we'll wrap it up here. Any last comments?
No?
All right. So this has been Desert Rose 2009, episode 92, assignment and acting movie reviews. And shout out to everybody who came in, dropped out. We're still new to FANBASE. This is only our second review on here. So we're going to be dropping content on here, more stuff to do, more stuff to talk about. If you have a film you want us to review, put it in the comments and we'll try to get to it. And follow me on YouTube as well. Simon Hill Keeps It Trill. Y'all be easy out there and peace.